am LaToya Benton. Xavier Hill was my son. He was murdered by the state police on January the 9th, 2021.
Jamal Byrd, he was murdered by DC Metropolitan Police in their custody. He died in their custody, and they claim that they don't know what happened. They had no business arresting him.
This is Life After the Impact, a podcast for impacted families by impacted families that focuses on what happens after the media, the lawyers, and the activists are gone. Impacted families are left to face the loss of a loved one to police-sponsored violence. We will focus on their continued fight for justice and how you can get involved.
Walks away. Watch your police take another life today. Leaving loved ones torn that left to say. Candles burning, and all we do is pray.
The root of state-sponsored violence, be it through the slave patrol in the 1700s, be it through the lynch mob in the 1800s, be it through law enforcement, is grounded in the history of racism and white supremacy in this country and the disregard for Black life. There were a whole host of stereotypes that went along with the enslavement of African people, and one of the most predominant stereotypes and fallacies about Black people, Black men in particular, is that just by nature and just by biology, Black men are a threat, are aggressive, are violent, and later are criminal. The books, the narratives, the media still portray Black people and people of African descent in that same stereotypical and fallacious way. So the same stereotypes that were used to justify our enslavement are the same stereotypes that people are using to judge us and characterize us now, and it's dangerous.
Good evening and welcome to Life After the Impact. My name is Roxane Johnson. My son's name is Jamal Byrd. He was murdered by DC Metropolitan Police, October the 1st, 2019. I have with me this evening my co-host, LaToya. LaToya, are you there? Hey.
Yeah. Good evening, you guys. My name is LaToya Benton. I am the mother of Xavier Hill. Xavier was killed by 2 Virginia State police officers at the age of 18, January the 9th, 2021. So tonight we have a little bit different of a setup. We were going to have a virtual community discussion. So there you go. As you guys can see, we have other people here with us tonight. I'm gonna just throw it to go on the football. Go to the next guest here is going to catch the ball and then go ahead and begin to introduce themselves. We'll go around the room first, and then we're going to have a popcorn discussion about accountability and justice and what that means. The importance of the conversation. Everyone on this podcast tonight is an impacted family member who has been impacted by the police brutality, I think, except for Angelo. Angelo is actually an attorney. However, he is am I right, Angelo, to say that?
You are correct.
Okay. He is an attorney, so we brought him on the podcast as well because it's important to not only have members of ourselves who are speaking out against these injustices, but also to have our attorney friends here to kind of explain to us the legal side and their perspective as to why we're not bridging the gap in the community of what accountability and justice means to us. So before we get started, we're going to go around the room popcorn style with introductions. We're going to start off with Nikki.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nikki Owens, and I am the cousin of William Green. William Green was murdered by a Prince George's County, Maryland police officer on January 27th of 2020. He was handcuffed in the front seat of the police car and he was shot 6 times. The officer was arrested and we are waiting for his trial now. I'd like to pass it over to Oscar.
Hello, everyone. My name is Oscar Urbina. I am a 61-year-old Hispanic male. My kid, Ruben Urbina, he was only 15 years old in 2017 when he was killed by a Prince William County police officer here in the state of Virginia. The police name is his name is Robert Joyce, and it's very hard for me to speak about the details of this, even after almost 5 years. If anyone need more information, please let me know, and I will elaborate on what happened to Ruben. But it's very hard for me to, even after 5 years, to talk about it. I miss him terribly every single day. So I don't know who's next.
You tell us who's next.
Oh, I don't have. I'm very new to this Zoom thing. So how can I know who is next? I mean, I see the participants.
Okay, so who do you want to pick?
I pick. What's it, Jimmy Hill?
Okay.
Yeah, that's me. How y'all doing today?
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Hill. First, I'm gonna say God is good. I always have to give God his credit. But I'm Jimmy Hill. I'm the father of Jimmy Atchison. My son Jimmy Atchison was shot and killed. He was unarmed and surrendered, yet he was shot and killed by former Atlanta police officer Son Kim on the assumption of a bogus armed robbery warrant in which the witness came forward after being interviewed numerous amount of time by police and the news, Atlanta News, and stated that there was no going on armed robbery. This case in December 16th, 2022, a Fulton County grand jury indicted this officer, Sean Kenny, and charged him with felony murder, aggravated assault, and violation of oath. After 4 years of overcoming obstacles and hurdles and many challenges, but in the 4 years we lost my son's mother, Cynthia Atchison. We laid her to rest May 19th. She died from a broken heart while in this fight, May 19th of last year. Okay, so now his attorney, after he was being indicted, his attorney filed a motion to have this case moved to a federal court. So that's where we're in the process now, waiting on the judge decision whether we remain state or whether it be turned over to federal court.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
Who do you want to pick next, Mr. Jimmy, to go next?
I'm trying to, I don't even see what a thing, this is my first time doing it like this. How do I tell who next?
You don't. Who do you see participating?
Huh?
Who do you see on the screen?
I don't see it on my phone, let me see. I'll be don't mess around and hung up the phone. I don't see who's next.
Toya, I'll go next.
Okay, thank you.
Marion.
Hi, my name is Marion Gray-Hopkins, and I am the mother of Gray-Hopkins, who was murdered at the age of 19. He was murdered by two Prince George's County, Maryland police officers, Devin White and Brian Catlett. I am also the executive director of the Coalition of Concerned Mothers, along with several other organizations here in Maryland, Maryland Coalition for Justice and Police Accountability, Prince George's County People's Coalition. And so Gary attended a dance that night after breaking up a fight between a verbal altercation, between one of his friends and another party goer. And the police officer, he was unarmed. The police officer comes, pulls him off the car. And the officer who was doing security that night made one fatal gunshot wound to Gary's chest, killing him. So that catapulted me into my social justice and civil liberties work. And again, it was November 27th, 1999. I passed it on to Uncle Bobby.
Thank you, Marilyn. I am affectionate known to the community as Uncle Bobby. I'm the uncle of Oscar Grant, young man killed in Oakland, California on January 1st, 2009. As a result, of course, of his murder, a movie called Fruitvale Station was produced. I'm not going to say a whole lot about it. I do want to just say for those that are very brand new, there is some wisdom that is on this Zoom meeting tonight. Marion for being one, of course, Michael Brown, Deanna, Andrew, and myself. We all been at this fight over 10 years, or basically at 10 years or more. And so, we hope that what we share tonight will help you understand this journey that you're on and how to navigate it to eventually, hopefully, begin the healing process, but also most importantly, to get the justice that you need for the murder of your loved one. And I'll pin it there. I'm gonna pass it to Michael Brown.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Brown Sr. I'm the father of Michael Brown Jr. that was killed August 9th, 2014. Actually, 7 days after he graduated, walking down the street from the store with a friend and was pulled over or stopped walking, being Black, by an officer. He was unarmed. He was asked to stop. The officer shot him from the car. He took off running and shot him in the middle of the street 7 times. And sadly, that's what a lot of people remember about Mike Brown laying in the street for 4.5 hours. And I continue to fight for my son. We have a foundation called the Michael Brown Senior Chose for Change organization. You can follow us on all the work that we do. It's a life sentence and we still rolling. Call on Deanna. Joseph.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be with you tonight. I am Deanna Joseph, the mother of Andrew Joseph III, who was 14 years old when he was killed in Tampa, Florida on February 7, 2014. That particular jurisdiction in which we sought legal ramifications for is the Hillsborough County Sheriff Department, as well as the Florida State Fair, who were both entities liable in the death of Andrew when he attended the Florida State Fair on Student Day on that Friday night, just wanting to spend time with friends, as 14-year-old children do. He was apprehended and detained unjustly by the Hillsborough County Sheriff Department, asked to disrobe of his clothing as they were looking for gang identifiers, because this was the gang task force working the fair that night at Student Day. Andrew didn't have any of those gang identifiers that the gang task force was looking for, but that didn't stop them from taking a mugshot photo of him and transporting him in a sheriff paddy wagon and abandoning him on a dark road at night where he was hit and killed on that particular Student Day. It has been 9 years of constant struggle, trying to get closure. We did have a trial on last year where we were successful in beating qualified immunity, and a trial was granted 2 whole weeks of grueling testimony. And I thank those who were able to provide court support for us, because that made all the difference in having communities such as yourself with us in that courtroom for those 2 weeks. Needless to say, that was September of 2022. However, due to immunity, its repeat insult on families such as ours, an appeal was filed by the Sheriff Department within 2 weeks of that trial. So we continue to pursue and press on, hoping that one day complete and true justice can be obtained in this lifetime. So I will pass the mic to Mel. No, Mel, you're the sound person. LaToya Carter?
Yep, there you go.
Okay.
Hi, y'all. Hey. So my name is Marion LaToya Carter. I'm getting some feedback. Sorry. My nephew is Tony Robinson. He was shot and killed in March of 2015 in Madison, Wisconsin by a police officer named Matthew Kinney. He shot him 7 times. My nephew was having a mental breakdown and he was in his home. The officer breached the house and shot my nephew in his house. My mother has been working tirelessly since 2015 to get the officer charged. She found a law, a 968.02 subdivision 3. And this allows the people to do what the DA refuses to do. And we believe that every state actually possesses this statute, that if the DA refuses to do his job, that we take it out of his hand and pursue ourselves.
Turn your volume down a little bit. We can hear, like, it's hard to hear what you're saying.
Maybe, is that better?
If you got 2 devices going, turn one of them all the way down or one of them off.
See, the other one is reading is off. I'm gonna work on it, y'all.
If you just turn it off, the feedback will stop. If you turn off the second device.
All right. And I guess while she's doing that, we're gonna toss it over to attorney Angelo Pinto.
Thank you. So my name is attorney Angelo Pinto. I'm one of the co-founders of a social justice organization called Until Freedom, alongside Tamika Mallory, my son Lyndon, and Linda Sarsour. We worked on a number of police murder and police violence cases. Most recently, actually yesterday, we just left Louisville, Kentucky, where we were standing alongside Tamika Palmer, who is the mother of Breonna Taylor, where we are actually starting a campaign to prevent Daniel Cameron, who was the Attorney General, who declined to prosecute the officers involved in the murder of Breonna Taylor, who is now running for governor of the state of Kentucky. So we launched kind of our efforts to stop him from becoming governor. And for us, it's a part of the continuation of the work, even after you try to pursue the officers, the lawsuit, and all the other pieces. The work continues, as all of you folks know, the fight continues. And we were standing at the press conference alongside some of the attorneys who are representing Jalen Walker, who was murdered in Akron, Ohio, as well as Jacob Blake Sr. So there were many families of victims of police violence and police murder who were there standing in solidarity with Until Freedom and Tamika Palmer, Breonna Taylor's mother, as we kind of mount our efforts to prevent Daniel Cameron from becoming the governor of Louisville, Kentucky.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I'm not really sure, but we're gonna kind of like just for time's sake. So to kind of get the conversation started, I did want to access all the families. How many of you all, the officers were indicted and spent any time in jail? If that's the case, raise your hand if they were indicted and spent time in jail. That's one person.
No, I want to say that there was an indictment and there was a trial, but there was no time spent in jail.
Well, what
so
happened?
I should raise my hand halfway or not.
Okay. What happened after the trial? What happened after the jail time?
Well, only one of the officers was indicted, and that was the one who did the fatal shooting. Unfortunately, the officer that incited the incident was not indicted. I don't know why. I didn't have the knowledge that I have now, but he was not indicted. He lied under oath. The officer that was indicted went the day before. Before the trial, he was going to go with a jury trial. The night before the trial, he went bench trial. He went judge. So we had 7 days of testimony. that clearly showed that this officer was guilty. But the judge on the day of closing argument said, I have heard enough. I will be back after lunch with my decision. And his decision was truly based on officers have split seconds to make a decision. And his perception of what he thought he saw, the judge let him go and acquitted him on all charges. They were supposed to indict the officer who incited the incident, who was, by the way, under investigation for 3 different excessive but not deadly forces. Lied under oath. The then state's attorney was going to charge him for, what do you call it, guys, when you lie under oath?
Perjury.
Perjury. Thank you. Never did. I didn't know I had I didn't know I could have gone back and, you know, pressed the issue. But long story short, you know, he had a judge that was pro-police, and again said that his decision was primarily based on their need to make a decision. But again, my son didn't have any drugs in his system. He was unarmed, breaking up in altercation.
So nothing as far as like
nothing happened. He's still on the force. He's making $167,000 a year. I've been unsuccessful in trying to track down the officer that incited the incident. But what I have heard was that he left and went to Florida. So he's probably a police officer somewhere in Florida now.
So I think we talked about what 9 or 10 on this call, right? And I asked that question because if you have 9, what is it? 9, I don't know. I can't see the bottom of the screen anyway. Think about that, and you only have Bobby raise his hand who said the officer was indicted and got any kind of jail time. So the topic of conversation is
actually he was so if I can, very like Marion, right? The officer that caused Oscar to be murdered by Johannes Mesley was never indicted. However, Johannes Mesley was convicted of involuntary manslaughter, even though the jury came back with a involuntary conviction, which gave him the minimum term of 2 years, but also they came back with a conviction on the gun enhancement charge, which was an automatic 10 years. So the max he was going to do was 14 years. However, Judge Robert Perry, pro-police also, ex-police himself, threw away the gun enhancement charge, reduced his time down now to 2 years, and then said because he had already did some time in jail, he gave him 2 days served for every day in jail, reduced his time down to 11 months. So he only did 11 months. However, I did want to say this to Marion. Our Attorney General, Rob Bonta, has reopened our case for felony murder charges against Tony Peroni, the one that incited and caused Oscar to be murdered. Now, where it goes from here is still a major push on our part. However, a felony murder charge, there's no statute of limitation. So if you got the campaign and support behind you to push the Attorney General to file felony murder charges, you know what I'm saying? It could reopen the investigation. Of course, who knows where it's going to go from there. But I also wanted to say this right before I close, Angelo, I was down with Tyree Nichols' family, and we did shout out Breonna Taylor because their birthday is the same day. So we were split, you know, and sadly, this is what's happening now with all these shootings around the country. We cannot seem to unify ourselves because so many are happening all across this country. We're divided and diluted to such a degree that some of the families don't have the support that they need. But anyway, I pin it there. I pin it because I can run away with this.
I mean, Uncle Bobby, I think that's the idea, is to keep us as isolated as possible. We already know that we're stronger in numbers, and this has been something in the works. I mean, it digresses from what we're talking about really, but I mean, we know the inner workings of what a half a millennium of racism has done to this country. And I think a lot of us grossly misjudged how the elitists operate when it comes to us.
Totally agree. I think I see Miriam's hand up, and I don't know. I don't know who went up first. Was it Miriam or Nikki?
I just wanted to mention, I know that, and this was so eerie feeling to me, but Breonna Taylor and Tyree Nichols and my son are all born on the same day, June 5th. Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know that about Gary. His birthday the same day.
Same day. His birthday was yesterday.
Wow.
Wow.
Nikki?
I'd just like to say that I definitely agree with LaToya that that is the purpose of this, but I think we as families need to understand that we can't do this alone. So I think that we allow the media sometimes, and we allow certain people in the media to exploit our loved ones without understanding that by bringing attention, so much attention to one person, what you're doing is you're making it seem like it's an isolated incident. It's a singular problem. Because the one thing that my cousin was murdered before George Floyd, but he was also murdered the day that Kobe Bryant died. So he didn't get the press. My cousin was not a criminal. There was nothing for them to exploit. I didn't give the police enough time to build a narrative. I built the narrative before they could. So I told the news what happened before the police could build a narrative. The officer was arrested within 24 hours. One of the biggest differences that murdered him was Black. He wasn't white. And so people kind of took this as a Black on Black crime, which it definitely is not.
Nikki, the year your cousin got killed was what year again?
2020.
Now, do you feel like, and Marion, yours was in
1999.
99.
Do you feel like there's a difference when it comes, you say it comes with support and stuff, right? Do you guys feel like you say, we have cases like Breonna Taylor, Mike Brown was on the call. So I know I believe that Oscar Brown on the call as well. So different cases that have support. So what do you do as a community, or what do you think happens as far as it fails with the community, as far as like some cases get support and some cases do not get support?
I think that the people like Al Sharpton, certain people in the media select people that they feel is going to be they're going to be able to exploit and get themselves out there. I think they use the death of some of our loved ones to put themselves out there, to make it seem like it's this big support, but it's really just ratings for them. If they really cared, they pick up all the stories.
Okay,
my thing, they don't care. If they cared, they would pick up all these stories. All these stories would be major stories to them, but they all seem to just make it seem like they're doing it for their own benefit, for their ratings.
I want you to chime in on that. I want to respond to that because you do have an organization, you're a lawyer, right? So I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when Zay got killed, my automatic response was like, NAACP, ACLU, because I want to hold them accountable. And that's why I'm thinking like, I'm just justice from these organizations, right? You're a lawyer, you're a Black lawyer. So I'm thinking like, hey, I need to call every Black lawyer in my state. They're gonna pick my case up. Why is it that, or what is it that we fall, as far as a lawyer's perspective, why they don't pick the cases up and fight for all the cases?
I think the more I've learned doing the work over time, the more I realize how much goes into what's taking place. And for instance, when we first found out about Breonna Taylor, this was months after Breonna Taylor was murdered. And the family had been trying to get individuals to work on the case for a long time. And finally, the family's attorneys caught up with Tamika, and they were like, we need your help. We need you to get attention on this case.
You say months, 3 months, 6 months?
About 3 months had passed. We didn't know about the case, and really nobody knew about the case. And when we first went down to Louisville, Kentucky, we might have had a couple of events with 40 people there, right? And we actually were leaving Louisville. We were in Louisville for 3 days, and we had to go to Indianapolis for another person who was murdered by police. So also many of the individuals and attorneys who are tapped for these cases, they're tapped all the time. Yesterday, there was a sister who was murdered in Florida. Yeah. I'm sure some of you folks may have heard the case, AJ Owens. She was murdered in Florida when she went to her neighbor's door because her son had an altercation with them. Literally yesterday, while we're with Breonna Taylor, we're getting the calls to go and come to Florida to assist the family. So there's so much violence happening to Black folks at the hands of police and others, and we're still in the fight for Breonna Taylor. That fight isn't over. So not only are you constantly picking up and taking on new issues, we're from New York. We were, on the ground when Eric Gardner was murdered. I know Nicole Bell, Sean Bell's widow. We happened to be in Baltimore when Freddie Gray died, was murdered by police, right? And at the time, Pastor Jamal Bryant had a church in Baltimore and let us sleep in his church for the night while we, worked on the Freddie Gray case. So part of what's happening is there's so many cases, and I'm sure, folks like Uncle Bobby could speak to it. There's so many cases that are constantly happening that most folks who are doing the work are spread tremendously thin to address these issues. And, the example of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky, we're still in the fight. And now we know the fight has escalated where we're trying to prevent Daniel Cameron, who was the attorney general, who could have prosecuted the officers when Breonna was murdered, from now becoming governor. Because in many ways, he's been rewarded for not doing anything. So now the fight continues in that regard, but simultaneously, we're also making the Department of Justice, they opened a pattern and practice investigation into the Louisville Police Department, and they have federal charges on 4 of the officers. So not only do you have to kind of keep your eye and move a case along, which can take 10, 20 years, you have to address the other ways in which the people who oppose you are trying to build power locally, right? So the Attorney General is now trying to build power across the state. We know one of the officers who was involved in the murder of Breonna Taylor recently got a new job as a police officer in a county close to Louisville, Kentucky. So the fight goes on and goes on. So it's complex. I'll just end with that. It's very complex. And I think the ways in people are spread thin. And that's why I think this call is so important, because the question becomes, how do we build a movement that allows us to respond to all the names that people don't know?
So why? And I think it's a critical point, Angelo. I think it's critical because when Tamika was at Sabrina Fulton's event, I think it's still important. I know that you all are spread thin, in the various organizations, but it's important to, when you're in a specific city, that you don't lift up the names of just the elitists, but you lift up the names of people across the nation so that their names will be learned too. Because again, as Nikki has shared, that people begin to think it's isolated. If you don't lift up the names, we know over 1,000 people are killed by law enforcement every single year, but you continuously hear the same names over and over and over again.
I'd like to jump in on that.
Yeah, I like that too.
So when Tony was murdered in 2015, this was just months after Mike Brown's murder in Ferguson. And we were furious at the lack of coverage that he was getting in comparison. And because of this, I personally made critical mistakes in handling of this case. And I think that we fail to realize that the stronghold of racism is so deeply embedded into the fabric of this country that they make us be selective about who we choose to champion as rallying cries. My nephew's murder had just the right amount of doubt to employ an army of ignorance that would inevitably take away from his case. And that's the problem. We're not angry enough, in my opinion. We're not, and that's why we have to choose and pick who we choose to champion for rallying cries. We have grossly underestimated the stronghold of racism. It's so deeply embedded. We're talking about a half a millennium, 500 years of this being really into work, and us just now realizing that we have to stay angry about it. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to see if we move this conversation forward a little bit, but I want to see if we can agree to two things. Number one, the system that we live under is not, it's here to oppress us. So they're not here to free us. That's
yes,
number
ma'am.
Number two, we that we've been waiting for. So I think when we get a mindset that understands that these people who select certain people to be on CNN and all that stuff, is because that's the way they want to roll per se, right? And the second thing they know, ain't nobody who gonna check them? Who gonna check them? So we need to put our energy in the right place. You know, maybe picking a small thing that all of us we can do as a national movement, you know, and do it regionally and as well as locally. Because yeah, they ain't nobody, you know, they gonna do what they gonna do, but what we gonna do.
Can I speak to that? Can I speak to that, please?
First, Mr. Brown, and then we'll go to Uncle Bobby. Yes.
Okay. So what I would say is, you know, when our loved ones die or get killed, we are in a these parents are in a tunnel. We don't know who coming for us, who trying to build up their character or make their platform big or anything, you know. So a lot of times all we want is just justice. That's all I want. You know what I'm saying? Sadly, Mike laid on the ground for 4.5 hours. People not paying attention to what I'm saying. And it's so many cameras that was out there that picked up that, right? So the community was furious off that. Furious off that. I have no control over that. The community was furious. So other people were coming in. And yes, you know, I don't deal with the crumps and all that. You know, I was, like I say, I was blinded with all that. You know, it's a lot of lawyers I don't deal with, you know. I done had Crump choked out before, and I don't care about who like it. What I'm saying, I choked that man out for the disrespect, not doing his job right, right? So when people say you got people that come and do these cases, they're coming, I call them police chasers.
Ambulance chasers.
I call them ambulance chasers.
That's what it's called.
So when people think that, oh, okay, they got all this media, that ain't what I wanted. I want my son back. I know I'm not gonna get that.
But Mike, then tell me that
in the eyesore of keeping the movement going and letting people know what's going on in Missouri, which what been going on in Missouri, right. That's what was big that happened in Missouri at that time. You know, people were able to see what was going on this side of the world.
You got to tell.
If I can get in, can I get in?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So, first, the fact that over 1,000 plus folks are killed per year by the police, there's no way any so-called elected leader can be at every single one of them. That's just a fact. And Mike hit it on the money. And our attorney did too. Some cases, like Ahmaud Arbery case, the family fights for years, or we'll say for months, without nobody even knowing about the case. And then something bubbles to the top, and all of a sudden news show up. That happened to Breonna Taylor. That happened with Michael Brown. The city of Oakland caught on fire because the people were so riled up. So of course news came. But what about all those families that happen to have this happen, and none of that stuff shows up? They feel like they're isolated. So what we've created, this is my hope behind this conversation, and we can see the importance of this. We become our best helpers. And how do we do that, right? Now we have a conference that we put on every year where we invite families to come. Ideally, not to be in the fight, but to network among each other, to help heal each other, and then to help become consultants to those families that don't know what to do. So we become our best advocates when we build up the numbers in the United States of families that's already been impacted, to be able to go to those families that are brand new to assist them. Now, the reality is this, like Mike talked about, he choked out Attorney Crump, which is a reality. So when an attorney shows up like Al Sharpton or Attorney Crump, right? That family, like Mike say, it just caught off guard because they just come. And of course, you want justice, so you allow them in your space. But sometimes, and many times, they don't always navigate the terrain correctly according to your perspective, and it creates animosity and anger. And not only that, it creates pain, but it also, let me just finish, but it also creates disunity. You know what I'm saying? Because now people are pushing back on Mike, thinking that he getting all this publicity because his son was killed, but Mike didn't have anything to do with it. George Floyd didn't have anything. George Floyd family didn't have nothing to do with that knee on George Floyd's neck, or Breonna Taylor's case, or Ahmaud Arbery's case. You know what I'm saying? Freddie Gay case. We could go on with the names, but this is all I want to say about this, is that we have to build up a network of families like Marion that creates organizations that go to these families and work with them. That's how we solve that problem.
No,
Let me add something. Okay.
I want to ask that as a whole, you all, so we can all agree on this as well too, that right, as far as the police are concerned, every one of us had someone who's killed by the police, right? That wasn't held accountable. Would you not agree that when you have the case, like we all said, you got different cases where you might have people come from the community by the thousands, right? Though, my question is, what happened to my son? What happened to Marion's son? What happened to Deanna's son? What happened to anybody else in the community, right? They're not exempt. They're not exempt. So, why is it that when it comes to accountability and justice, we're not seeking anything differently, or last but not check, than what they're supposed to be fighting for?
Let me add something. I want to add this.
Go ahead, Mr.
What we were just talking about. When my son was murdered, it was 8 days before the Super Bowl that was here in Atlanta. And former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Bottom placed a dark cloud over this case. And they wanted to sweep it on the road. And after much pressure, they allowed this officer to resign. A 26-year veteran, overly aggressive, always been known to disobey order, that was in charge of the federal task force that kept him off. My son was surrounded by 4 officers with weapons drawn, not tasers. Weapons drawn, not tasers. A few feet from him, unarmed and surrounded because he was in his boxer shorts. Son Kim was the only officer that shot. He said he thought when my son raised his hand, giving 2 conflicting commands, come out with your hands up and freeze, don't move. When he raised his hand to surrender after he complied, Son Kim shot him one time, blowing out his brain, saying he thought my son's finger was a gun. All the stories of the other, when no other officer shoot, all the stories were inconsistent. One officer said he raised his right hand. Another officer said he raised both hands together. Another officer said he raised his right hand in the form of a gun. So in the beginning, I had to learn and catch up early that our kinfolk ain't exactly kinfolk. And that's why I was talking about with Black leadership, because we got no support in Georgia. Georgia's Confederacy.
So how do we build the support then? Like that's what I'm saying. If we support, how do we build the support?
Can I say something real quick?
We haven't got support. Everybody think here we are in Atlanta, the birthplace of Dr. Martin Luther King, creator of the Civil Rights Movement, and everybody think the blackest city in America, and everybody think that it's easy like that. We don't get support from Black entertainment. We don't get support from Black pastors, and they know the truth. We don't get support from Black organizations. And you might don't remember when you brought a lot of guys came down here, and we met downtown, and you hugged me, and I told you, my brother, I needed that.
Real fast, I want Nikki to respond, and then let Mike go next, please.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, so for me, when I see families like yours, Mike Brown, I feel bad for your family because I feel like you were exploited. People tried to exploit your son's murder. when I know that when my cousin was killed, all I wanted was justice. That was my when I woke up and I heard it, that was the only thing on my mind. When our attorney said, introduced me to the NAACP, what I told the president of the NAACP is, I will work with you if you gather up every local activist so that I can work with them. I was not willing to work with the NAACP without local activists because I knew we couldn't do this alone. So I see families like yours and I see how they use you guys, and they're not focused on the real thing, on the thing that families want is justice. Like when our loved ones are killed, we don't care about TV coverage. We don't care about anything. We want justice. And I feel like sometimes it hinders justice when they exploit your cases that way. It hinders justice. So for me, I feel like, how do we get that support? That if we do work with the NAACP or the ACLU or this or that, we need to tell them we need to work with the local activists that you're working with. Because the thing is, those local activists are going to know the other families that were impacted. They're going to know the other people that we need to connect with so that we don't feel alone. The thing is when we're working with the NAACP and the ACLU and all these organizations, now I love the ACLU, but my thing is they still will exploit you for what you are, for who you are and what your case is, if you allow it. But I really do feel like we need to demand that when we work with these organizations, or if Al Sharpton comes to you, you need to say, can I get all the local families that were impacted and can we all be involved in this? This is not, the one thing I will tell everybody, this is not about my cousin. And even to this day, it's not. He's gone. The people I'm fighting for is the other victims of this man. And I think that we have to actually come together and we have to find the people. We have to say, what is our best way of getting some type of support where we're at is by demanding that if I work with you, I need to work with the local people. Attorneys know local activists. So if you got a local attorney, that local attorney should know local activists. We have to ask the people who know, because there are people who know. That's what I did. I asked what I didn't know, who I needed. I asked.
So I want to just say this. I ain't gonna be long. Yeah, it's sad they exploited us, but they did build us a platform, right? So with that platform, I like to travel around the country and help other families. So I do that. You know what I'm saying? I do that. I don't watch TV or the news. Very depressing. We have real STL news in a little station called VOP that's on Facebook that I might see or something like that. And they cover stuff from city to city and stuff like that. But I don't watch the news. So a lot of times I don't know when these loved ones have been murdered or hurt. You know what I'm saying? Because I can't. My anxiety is terrible right now, you know, and it comes with the territory, right? So, but if anyone on here needs me to use me, you can use me. To get what you need, call me. That's what I'm here for. That's what we all are here for. But we got to help each other, you know.
LaToya, mine's will be really quick. Mine's will be really quick. When Oscar was murdered, Al Sharpton showed up to LA. And you know what we told him? We got the community. We don't need you. And he went back home. If you notice something about the state of California, Al Sharpton can't run to the state of California. The only reason why he got Stephon Clark's family is because Savante called him personally and asked him to come. Because Al Sharpton doesn't have the traction in the state of California like he does in other states. He don't come and uplift high-profile cases. High-profile cases in the state of California is uplifted by the community. So how do you build the community to uplift these cases? That becomes the golden answer, right? In the state of California, we know how we do it, and that's how we do it.
Hey, but Uncle Bobby, you know the momentum leave when the camera's gone, so it's just us. Ain't no more community. It's just we all we got.
That's all we got.
But we all really, when the cameras leave, that's when they really start dragging you. That's when the city, the state, everybody starts really slapping you upside the head because nobody's watching anymore. So now they can say, do whatever, treat you however. My sister's address was released to the whole city of Madison, and it got so bad that people were driving past her house, revving up their engines, and the DA had to put her up into a hotel. She had to leave her home. Because when the cameras turn off, that's when the real abuse starts.
So y'all, we already got, this is good. This is good so far. We are a little bit off topic, but it's good. I think sometimes like when we as a community are gotten into a conversation that needs to be had, we're supposed to have it, right? So I want to kind of just spin into a little bit. We talked about community support and a little bit about accountability, right? And going to the DA's office, and officers being indicted. But I think we're gonna kind of shift it. I want to shift it a little bit. I want to talk about community support because I feel like that is what the issue is when it comes to us not getting accountability and getting any kind of justice. Y'all know that I'm in court right now. Well, I'm still, we still in the fight. I'm just stay there. We gonna go in and claim it. We ain't gonna say what's going on just yet, but we claim it. I'm in the fight still, right, for justice for Xavier's case. I've been to court and I've had, in my case, people show up to court. We packed the courthouse, like 60 people in the courthouse, right? I've been to other cases, it might be 12 people in the courthouse. I've been to other cases, it might be me and other family in the courthouse. Why is that though? If the system knows, almost like y'all watch mental here, y'all watch football, you watch basketball too. So y'all know if the opponent knows your play, they're gonna play upon that. Why as a community are we so separated and divided that we can't achieve any kind of justice or accountability? Or we can't just work on that goal to get that? What is it?
Can I say something?
Please.
When everything happened with Mike, it's so many people that are millionaires right now off of Michael. Mm-hmm. You know, sadly, you have some genuine people. You have some genuine people. It's hard to pick through when you got so many scavengers around you.
Mm-hmm. Oh man.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is, that's what the conversation was in the beginning. Like we have to be our own backbone. You know what I'm saying? For each other. And I'm sorry, like it's a lot of names that I don't know. And it's crazy that my wife put on these events and she know these names by heart. And she like it hurts her heart to even know these names in this type of way though. Right. It's depressing, but it's our reality that our loved one has been murdered, and we have to still stand up and do what we have to do, through the pain. We have to pick up that strength from each other and keep it moving, so yeah, we have to be, that's just my bottom point to answer your question. We have to be there for each other. When I'm sad, when the cameras are gone, people leave.
That's right.
If they something they can gain off you, they're gonna leave you. They're gonna leave. You're right. And you would look at this like, if this don't touch anyone's family, they're not human. Some of these people are human. They are out to get $1 off your loved one.
Yeah.
But when you talk about why the community is not coming together under this issue, we can chalk it up to what we call cultural conditioning.
That's right.
That's right.
Cultural conditioning.
That's
and so
right.
what we have to be in the process of, as we're moving through this fight, is detoxing our sanctified minds, our sanctified, our Black minds, and get back, because I believe everything that we have done, we can do. And so we don't need CNN to be showing up. We don't need more trauma, Black trauma porn. We don't need that. What we need is a movement where all of us are moving forward in some way to get the justice that we're looking for. And how do we build that as a community? I think
I can answer that.
Yeah, I think Uncle Bobby, what you were saying about, building networking with families and getting and having relationships.
That's the key. Now listen to this, right? California is, well, as you know, Oakland specifically, but California as a statewide, that's all we have is coalitions and organizations and everybody. But what's really important is that we as impacted families sometimes can be overcritical of a particular organization or leader of that organization for shouting out your loved one's name. And I could just cite one quick example, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but when Tamika was on stage and she shouted out, I forget exactly, about police violence. She came up under attack because the particular family thought that was a violation because we should have been on stage.
Oh, the BET.
I don't, can I, huh?
Was it the BET Awards?
No, I forget the awards, but the attorney probably know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'll say the name because, you know, I still love Samaria Rice, but she attacked her. Now, some say she was right for the attack, but in reality, all she did was put it out there to the world that police violence is real in this country, not meaning to degrade or take away from Samaria by announcing her son's name, but telling the world that this is an issue. And so if we are overcritical of individuals that are really championing our cause, that causes them to clam up. And they're very careful about how they speak about police violence to the world. So we as people, we as impacted families first, must not attack those that are really trying to help us. Now, how do we build communities that lack the community organization structure that can actually help a family in that city? That's what Mike is talking about. All our fathers are intending to go to Jalen McKenzie's event on June the 10th in Memphis, Tennessee. Well, who is Jalen McKenzie? Not all of us even heard that name. But what we're gonna do is show up and support that family and make it known that this individual and this family have a right to justice. So we're trying to utilize our so-called cases and names to help this family that don't get that high profile vocal. You get what I'm saying? CNN's not gonna show up.
It starts with us as a community. I think we have to.
It starts with us.
Yeah, we have to utilize our own resources in order for us to even entertain the question of justice and accountability. We gotta fix this crack foundation. I'm new to this fight, y'all know that. But like you said, we got Marion on the call, we got Oscar, we got Mike Brown, we got people who have been fighting for years at a time. But from what I'm saying, it's like a hamster wheel, and where sometimes you're like on the same hamster wheel, just kind of like going like this. But it's time to like jump off and figure out what can we do collectively to actually begin to move. And what it is that the community has to be strengthened. But across the board, I read articles all day long about California and how they are trying to make some kind of progress because the community, they do stick together. That is the truth. But it's like, how come we cannot all be on fire and not in the same states because we're also fighting for the exact same thing? You know, I'm a Black woman. They can still jack me up right now. I'm still a Black person. Deanna, they're in Florida. And I know it's hard down there. So it's like, you know, how do we begin to work together as a community so that it's a state board? Deanna, can you answer to that? Like, what do you think we have to do as far as community work to get it from like Florida, to get it to California, to Texas, to New York?
I always tell, because we have a support group here in Tampa with impacted families, and I tell them to show up for themselves, show up for events, show up for county commissioner meetings, because you never know who's in the room. You never know who is in the room that will be able to help amplify and bring forth the necessary resources and change that you might be able to utilize. And if you're not able to utilize it, then put it in your toolbox for the next person who may be able to utilize it. And in building community, I have found that because I was not one of those cases that were high profile, as they would say, or the elitist or anything. We had a case that was true to facts, were clear. We had a story that was of a child who was doing what any other child would do, going to a school fair. And we had a commitment to our son that whatever it would look like, that we would never stop fighting for him. So sometimes that's all it really takes, is the perseverance and determination to never give up, even though sometimes the water was turned off or the light bill was due. You know, we would determine that all of the resources we had was going to go to this fight. And I'll just go back a little bit further. When we would travel, we would sometimes put an air mattress and sleep on the floor in someone's
Tell 'em
kitchen.
about it, Deanna.
Okay.
We done slept
And-
on a lot of floors.
Right, because we couldn't afford the hotel fee, but we knew getting to the next conference or the next event was so important to be able to network and join a community, not only in Tampa, Florida, but in other cities and states. Because in essence, those were gonna be the people that was gonna be here for the long haul. Because like I told you, it took 8.5 years before we even got a trial. Because every step of the way was qualified immunity and appeals and appeals and appeals. There was 2 separate appeals that went to the Atlanta 11th Circuit Court. And we were successful, but in the end, Andrew's not here. He's not coming back, okay? We set legal precedents for a case that would come after Andrew. So that's pretty good.
That helped. Yeah,
It's helpful.
but it's still
And-
not.
But it doesn't help me for, as far as my son, a remedy for my son. It was a moral victory, all the same. But in building community, that's what it took. It took showing up
Perseverance.
Great sacrifice.
I think part of that too, what I'm learning throughout the fight is that people who, as I'm saying, I don't know how we can, because like I said, this question still stands. How do we, the same fire and passion that we all have on this call about our love, how do you community to adapt that same fire and passion? Granted, it's not necessarily your loved one who it happened to. It can happen to your loved one. So, how do you, it's almost like when people go out and get car insurance, right? You get car insurance, you get health insurance, you get life insurance. That's preventative care for what may happen to you, right? They all get it. You can take out your check. You don't even use it sometimes, right? So we don't even wear glasses. You pay the eye doctor, right? So it's kind of like the same aspect of the thing. Why is the community not understanding that you have to do preventative care, preventative methods so that it will not happen to you? Why are they on fire? Like we're on fire. How do you
are.
If I may.
LaToya, you're doing the right thing. If I can, LaToya, you're doing the right thing because you've opened up an airway for families to come on to not only speak about their loss, but also to put in ears of those in their community that it's okay to talk about it. And by you giving it, so really you have created a platform that is really new, but yet powerful. And all you, and I think it was, who said it? It was Roxane said, I think you said that this is not to the swift, but it's to who endures. This platform that you created 5 or 6 years from now, it could be, sadly, if police keep going, it could be 150 to 200 people on this Zoom meeting right now. You get what I'm saying? Deanna's a good example. Deanna's a good example of no one knowing about her son, but they being persistent. They never looked at it as a short race. And because they kept talking, they began to build a network. They began to engage the community. They created a network within their community that now supports them and embraces them. But not only that, has begun to embrace other families in that community, that has created organizations in that community. But it's taken, like she said, 10 years.
So,
that's the reality.
I mean, for me, and LaToya, one thing that I think is kind of like racism. What we're dealing with is somewhat like racism. We're dealing with years and years of this being accepted and people not questioning what the police are doing, but what did that person do? You got to think, we have how many police shows do we have on television that people are watching loyally, where they think when they're asleep at night, police are out there saving our lives. Like there's police chases and bombs that we don't ever know about because the police are out there stopping crime while we're asleep. People, we're fighting the media, we're fighting people putting out this perception that police are these heroes. And we got communities who truly believe this. Like you got people talking about Blue Lives Matter. I'm sorry, there is no such thing, but these people are willing to put this out there because they believe in the police so much that when someone is killed, someone unarmed, not dangerous, not a threat, is murdered, they say, but what did he do? But
Right.
what did she do? Because in their mind, because of the perception that the media, the movies, the Hollywood, everyone is putting out their polices, they're heroes. These people are out there risking their lives. Probably 1% of the police department actually risk their lives in their career. My father-in-law was a police officer for 32 years and never had to pull his weapon in 32 years. So my thing is, less than 1% of the police officers are out here risking their lives. They're putting our lives at risk more than their lives are at risk. So we're fighting we're fighting communities of people who have hundreds of years of this thought that police are out there doing good. So we have to expose that their perception of police. But you got to think police are pushing this narrative. Our politicians are pushing this narrative. Everybody's pushing this narrative that police are out there saving our lives. Like they're out there and they're the people that we need to trust the most. So we're fighting, everybody's fighting against us. It's racism. It's systemic racism that we're fighting.
I think one of the other issues is we as a people do not address our youth enough. When I was in the streets, because I'm young, y'all. I'm young. I'm not a mother. I'm an auntie, and my nephew was 6 years younger than me. He was raised as my little brother. So when I'm in the streets, I'm really in the streets. And I remember doing protest after protest after George Floyd, and there was a little shorty, and he was sitting on the Capitol stoops, and he would sit out there every day and roll up and smoke his blunt and watch us. And I came over to him one time and I asked him, I said, why don't you march with us, man? Why do you sit here, but you don't step in? He said, because we hear you, but y'all ain't talking to us. And yeah, and it struck me because he wasn't wrong. When we go out and we want to fuel them up, when we're not directly in our communities, in the disenfranchised communities. We're not directly in the communities where they can't take off of work and make it to these protests. They can't afford to. And so we want them to be riled up, and it becomes this issue of we're not addressing the systemic oppression that prevents us from even being able to do what we need to do for our communities. We have so many families that are blue collar, working class families, and I've heard it so often. They can't afford to take off of work and come to a protest. They can't afford to lose their job. They can't afford to be seen in a setting that their higher ups might have them in HR about. And we know that it could be for any reason. And there's a certain level of protection that we don't offer to our people. And I think it piggybacks off of what Deanna was saying, because we have this idea about the police, about law enforcement, about the system that is supposed to work against us. And so many of us don't realize how fixed against us it is. It ain't broken, it's fixed. And so we've got these youth who don't see a future because they don't see their lives going past 25 years old. And that is a real fact. We got these 18-year-olds that don't even know that you hold every bit of power. And I think as adults, we become so consumed forgetting that they're about to take it, all of it. And I think there's a disconnect between the adults and the youth. It's nice to go to different communities and protest, but at the end of the day, adults ain't gonna be able to do it. They're not gonna be able to carry the torch. It's these YouTubers that have hundreds of thousands of followers and making money, that these are the platforms that we need to be able to step into, because that's where we're excelling at. That's where Black folks are excelling at. We are excelling in the arts, the artistry of being able to talk to you and have a platform to stand on so that the youth will listen. That's my opinion.
I want to touch on something Mike said. When Mike Brown said, and when he said you got a bunch of savages out there, you know, down here in Georgia, it's like, it's running wild. And I'm not just talking about the youth. I'm talking about activists and advocates and organizations looking to take advantage of the vulnerabilities of the families. Because some of these families in Georgia, there's about 20 families in Georgia that don't have lost loved ones to police brutality. And people are lurking and looking to take advantage, you know, because this system not designed to hear our cries of pain. And you have, it's just like, I think about white supremacists, but I don't too much worry because I know they're gonna do any and everything necessary. But then when I tend to drop my guard down, we continue to be our own worst enemy within. That's what, to me, that's what destroying us. Because what is unity? We scream unity, but what is unity without accountability? What is accountability without trust?
Yeah.
If I could add this,
Hold on, real fast, Roxanne's been waiting to jump in.
I go really fast. I go really fast
because
because
attorney has been waiting patiently with his hand up, and then we'll let you talk.
No, after Uncle Bobby, I go. Uncle Bobby.
Okay.
Yeah, just so that you know, right? Mike, when he said there's millionaires, see, the system by design creates the disunity, and we got to be clear about that. If we did a test case study on what happened in Ferguson, right? All of us activists and everybody in this world ran to Ferguson. The system by design dropped billions of dollars into that community to various organizations that became a fight for those funds and a complete disarray of even understanding what they was getting the money for. And many of them, as Mike said, pulled out of Ferguson and never returned with a bank full of money. Now, we the ones that's got to stop becoming suckers to white supremacy and its trickery. We're the ones that's got to stop allowing those that exploit us to come into our lives to do it. As long as we allow them to come in and do that, we're going to stay a disarray. So these are some of the things that we have to be conscious of. If Virginia gets hip to how to organize, the system by design is going to influence some of those organizers to pull away by giving them money to become the police against you.
That's right. You're right.
We got to educate ourselves.
But I'm sorry, Angelo, I have to jump in, but it is important, Uncle Bobby, that when these organizations and some on this call, when you get large sums of money, we need to make certain that we're sharing the wealth amongst ourselves, because the perception can be out there that some are getting money, but what are they doing with it to help,
the impact of families?
How do it free us? How do it get us justice? Right. So we can eat a steak for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but at the end of did we get any justice and did we get any freer?
I just wanted to say that
I just read something that my organization got millions.
Mike, real fast. I want Angelo. He's just waiting to go.
Can I just say this real quick and I'll be fast. And since this happened, we've been in the community out of pocket. I'm not saying that we didn't get anything off the settlement, but my dad had 8 other siblings. You know what I'm saying? So we do have to take care of our family. You know what I mean? But as far as like what is noted, is 2 organizations. Leslie has hers and I have mine. And I read something saying that Mike Brown has told Black Lives Matter or something like that, which I did, but we didn't receive anything. And the perception, what people read, they will read that and they will take that in. You know what I'm saying? And you have to have these conversations so people can understand that we're doing this through funding or doing selling plates, whatever, make this thing happen. So yeah, some people are targeted that way. So I just want to say that.
All right.
Go ahead, Angelo.
Yeah, I was going to say that, listening to everything that's being said and, from doing the work, the issue is complex, right? The issue is very complex. And Uncle Bobby was talking about California, but particularly Oakland, and how in Oakland, people can't just come in as they choose. There's infrastructure that exists that prevents that from happening. There's partnership and coalitions that prevent that from happening. But when I hear Oakland, I'm thinking about the Black Panther Party for self-defense. So, there's a tremendously long history of people organizing in this community and movement building in this community, that even though they may not have been there when that happens, there was a groundwork laid that created the space for that kind of organizing to happen. There's probably tons of leaders that were in position to organize the community. When I look at what happened in Ferguson, and even now when you look at what happened in Louisville, when we've been on the ground, the same thing happens. Tons of money drop into a particular community. And initially what that causes, a tremendous amount of infighting. And while that infighting is happening, you know what happens? There's a bunch of organizers in Louisville who were murdered. And people, I don't know how this happened, And if you look at what happened with the Panthers and in Oakland and across the movement, there was COINTELPRO.
Exactly.
The government infiltrated the movement and created divisiveness in the movement. And some of that was through money, some of that was through organizations, some of that was through agent provocateurs. They have a very sophisticated approach to dismantle us. Anytime there's a moment that happens where we do get visibility and we're able to create attention, it's a moment where we can transform the system. It's the moment when we can actually, I always say it all the time, you have to build a system to confront the system. There's no way around it. Those are moments when we can actually come together to build a system, but usually what happens is it makes us even more fractured. And it sets us back even further, right? But these are moments, and even when you look at what happened after Ahmaud Arbery, when cities across the country were protesting and families across the country were raising the names of individuals who had been murdered by police, it was a huge moment. And I believe for the most part, it was useful when we began to create a broader movement and invite people into the struggle. That's what has to really happen. We have to invite more people in every community into this fight. And people have to really be in the work day in, day out. In Louisville, Kentucky, just for an example, the sister who was the attorney for Breonna Taylor, she's now the president of the National Bar Association. The sister who was leading the movement to change the legislation, they were trying to ban no-knock warrants, and they did it in Louisville, Kentucky, which is the reason why Breonna Taylor was murdered. She's now on the city council. A sister who was an organizer on the front lines is now the judge that replaced the judge who signed the no-knock warrant in Louisville.
So you put the right people in power.
Well, you recognize that the community already has the answers. And then you strategically place people who are at the front line in position to transform the existing system locally. And you keep fighting, which is why we like Daniel Cameron can't be the governor, right? And as that movement grows and builds in Louisville and throughout Kentucky, that movement now can spread in the Midwest.
And I think part of the answer is too is just also like once the movement spreads, like Uncle Bobby said too, how you got in California, we got to think of some kind of way of having some kind of like mock something as far as how other states can use the exact same, you know, that same ways we can go in and move and spread about the exact same way. Because it can be done in California, it can be done in Kentucky, it can be done everywhere else. And it's like, you know, how come we don't have that exact same power everywhere else we go in order to get the exact same results so we can kind of accountability and justice. Y'all, we got about 10 minutes left from this call.
Can I say something real quick?
Go ahead.
In history, Brother Angelo might know this. I know Uncle Bobby do, but in history, I never heard of this. But the prosecutor of my case was the prosecutor, the judge, and the jury. In the history, I never heard of this. And this guy disappeared. He's not his wife left him. His kids don't mess with him no more. I heard he's not an officer, but he's still in Missouri somewhere. But he's hiding. But I'm like, if you didn't do anything wrong, why are you hiding?
Why are you hiding?
But what I'm getting at is that we elected Wesley Bell, which was on the council of Ferguson at the time, and we elected him to be the next prosecutor. And he came in, made promises, and did not do a thorough investigation to reopen the case. You know, so we have to be careful who we put in there and who's not scared.
That's right.
Scared.
Our thing has always been, we're going to get you in the office, but we're going to vet you when you're in there.
And hold them accountable.
And hold on, one thing
when you're in there.
Roxane, Marion, and me can probably count to is in Maryland. That's a major issue because we will have these people out here marching with us, sitting in hearings with us, and they get their asses in office, and guess what they do? Status quo. They get that money, they see that that Fraternal Order of Police money, and they willing to shut us down to keep getting that check and move to the next level. So my thing is you can try to get the right people in place, but you still at the mercy of that almighty dollar. Like they will fall for that old.
Yeah, but part of the reason that happens is because we don't own our political system. So what happens once you see police violence? The first thing we always talk about it, we say protest, politics, policy. So after you protest, you say, how do we get elected officials in office? Then you say, we want these elected officials to change policy. But what you learn in that process is elected officials get bought and sold like DAs.
That's right.
So you realize the other issue, it's not just police violence, police corruption is as a result of political corruption. And then you realize we got to control the police, but we also have to control the political apparatus. So part of what we are experiencing as a people is really helping us. And this is what people always say. We need community control of everything. We just don't have it. But once you see police violence running rampant, and then you start to say, let me get into this political game and let me get into this policy game, what it makes you realize is you need community control there too. And the individuals who are on the front lines, the individuals who have had a loved one murdered, sometimes we got to step into those positions.
Yes. Right? Here in Wisconsin.
Because that becomes community control, right? And that's Sister Nicole Bell ran for political office in New York. Yusef Salam of the Central Park 5 is running for city council in Harlem right now. And that's the kind of thing that needs to happen. The individuals who are, we always say those closest to the problems are closest to the solutions. The individuals who've experienced the trauma and the pain are now also the individuals who have to be in positions of power, right? And we still need to hold them accountable, but we know they're going to go into those positions with a different kind of thinking and a different kind of responsibility. And that's in fact the kind of leadership we need. What if every individual who was a family member of someone who was killed by police immediately ran for political office?
Man,
just to send a message around the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to send a message around the country and to raise the visibility of every name.
Yeah,
we could do that.
So you're absolutely right. Here in Wisconsin, my community actually voted for me to be the next DA because no one's run against our DA for 5 years now. He's had no competition whatsoever, and just as a gag, they wrote me into the ballots. Of course, I didn't get it, but to piggyback off what you were saying, community control is absolutely necessary. And to even go further, what if everybody whose relative was killed, they took a portion of their money and put them through law school? See, my mother, she's poured over the books, she's poured over statutes, she's poured over all of this, and she found one that allows community control back over the RDA system. I don't think y'all heard me. It's a 968.02 subdivision 3. Here in Wisconsin. It's a statute that says that if the DA refuses to do his job, any citizen can bring it before a judge. And that judge can then decide whether or not he'd like to go with the trial. Now, one of the things that they tried to do with here in Wisconsin, just really quick, is they tried to make us have a trial to prove reasonable doubt. And it's been unheard of. And when we found this law, we truly believe that it exists in every state, and we are going to find it. This is the mission that we're on. We're going to find it because there are laws out there. There are statutes that will allow us to put the power back in our hands because it's written right into our thing.
It's written right into it. Like you just said,
our government is not performing to what the people want, we have to take the power back. That is our law, our God-given American right. You brought us here. It's time for us to exercise the laws, bylaws, and statutes that you demand we live under.
That's right. So you guys, just real fast, wrap it up. I don't want to run over too much time. I do want to go around with this real fast, just briefly, if y'all, because maybe spend about 30 seconds. I thought it was a really good conversation. As far as, but we kind of veered off a little bit, but it's conversations that need to be had, right? I feel like the community, and like I said, I'm new to the fight or not, the community is broken when it comes to foundation-wise as far as how we're gonna move forward. And these conversations need to be had and to know how we peel the layers back in order to move forward. When you have people like in LaToya's state, when they have different laws that they're peeling back and knowing about different DAs, we gotta share that. Uncle Bobby said they have information as far as California is concerned about how to organize. We gotta share the information or whatnot. There's so much we can all learn from one another as communities, but we have to learn how to begin to work together and begin to network together. So this real fast going around the room before we hang up, I want everybody to say, you know, what, in all actuality, in a perfect land, what does justice and accountability really mean to you? And how do we get to achieve that? Please, y'all, we already been on the call for an hour and a half. So don't give us like a paragraph and a half, please. Just about 30 seconds. What does justice and accountability mean to you? We're gonna popcorn style around the room one more time again before we hang up. And what we're gonna do is this, what it means to us, let the community also know what it should mean to them as well. We are the impacted families, right? And I say, and I'll ask you a cup of water, don't hand me wine, hand me water, right? These are the needs that we have in order to be able to be successful. So I'll start off, for me, as far as justice and accountability is concerned, it's not just about my son, it's about systematic change, right? My husband's Black, my brother's Black, I got my nephews, they're Black as well. I got some friends that are Black too. I want us to stop going through this as a society. How do we begin to work together as a community or not, as far as making real systematic change, where it's not about just one case, it's getting justice to getting a paycheck. How do we get real systematic change? I don't want a tree. I don't want a plaque. I don't want things that are like just I can hold on to or not. How do we get real systematic change? And that's my question. You know, do we get work with the community or not, as far as getting real justice and accountability? Roxane, what does that mean to you?
Well, I just been really inspired by all the conversation this evening. But I think the brother who said we need to build a system.
That's right.
System. And that means using all the tools in the toolbox, not just voting, holding people accountable, voting their asses out of there if they ain't not doing what we need them to do, because we have that power. Yes, we do. And if we need to run for office, then that's what we need to do. So leave no stone unturned. That's what justice looks like for me. And not, you know, just justice for my son, but if her son and his cousin and your brother gets justice, then I too get justice. Understanding as a community that we need to move together, because we're more powerful when we say things in the same voice. We're more.
All right, Marion, how about you?
I think you guys have kind of hit the nail on the head. I think that it's going to require all of us. Earlier in the conversation, someone mentioned about we need to be screaming and hollering and getting loud. Because I would tell you, over my journey, you know, we used to ask for change. And now, you know, we're learning from the folks that are new into this. You got to demand change. Mm-hmm. So accountability and justice to me is that stop growing this group, right? So, and everybody has brought something different to this conversation. So we all have our ideals of what it will take. I think coming together as a group, having a conversation, and let's network off of one another and what we can do to bring this systemic change, because it's systemic. I think I put in the chat, Tim Scott, running for Republican Party president, gets on national TV and says there is no systemic issue, racism. It doesn't exist anymore. And we all on this call know it because we have lived it, right?
Right. That's right.
So working together will, I think, is one of the key things, because we know how to save us, right? We are all we need, and we are all we got.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Thank you, Marion. Oscar, what does justice and accountability mean to you?
First of all, I've been learning a lot by hearing everyone. But you know, when you guys talking about all the issues, the one thing that it comes to mind is, you know, the root. The only thing that comes to mind is the reason why. What was on that guy, the officer? Why did he shoot a 15-year-old skinny kid? And that's the only thing. So accountability for me and justice is I want to go to the to me the root cause is that individual. What is it? What was it in his heart and head that made him pull the trigger for for to kill, to take a life? And to my concentration right now in all my thinking and my effort is like to find out about how this I call them criminals, okay, because they took our kids. There's no other name. I call them criminals, okay.
Right.
Okay. So the my accountability for me is as a citizen to be able to penetrate that the corrupt broken system by understanding exactly how these animals, when they go to academy, the police academy, how are they trained? You know, and I would like to get in there, like infiltrate or penetrate and know that. To me, accountability is finding out what is it that makes these animals shoot at kids.
Gotcha.
As a Hispanic, more Mexican than American, I bring a different perspective. And I'm not comparing Mexico with the United States because in Mexico there is racism, but there is no white supremacy.
That's right.
But listen to me very carefully and look at this. This phenomenon where the police are killing civilians, you can look at it, does not exist in Mexico. Now you hear the cartel, the people in mafia are killing themselves, yes, every day, and you turn on the TV and you see that. But police do not kill regular civilians. Why? And the reason why is because when before a police pulls a trigger to kill a civilian in any encounter, you know that police in his head, he knows that he's already done, his life is over. Not only his life, but maybe the following day his family is gone.
Career, yeah. His career's over at the same time.
So,
absolutely.
So they know that take a life is almost like taking eye for eye. My question is, in the United States, why did these criminals kill our children? Do they know beforehand that there will be no consequences because that's how they're trained?
Yes. This country was my ancestors, but this country was founded in violence and it's maintained by violence. That's one of the major features of the systematic racism is violence.
So the politics I don't understand because although it's been 5 years, but I'm in a way new, and I'm so thankful for this conversation that we're having here today because I am taking it in. I don't speak much because I don't know much, but as I learn, as I learn and become educated, I will speak more. But I was just giving you that.
Hold on, I'll say real fast though, because we're trying to wrap this up, you guys, because we've only been in the call for a while. I want to pass it on to Uncle Bobby real fast.
That's justice and accountability to make them find out why
are you killing kids? Absolutely. Uncle Bobby, I want to pass it to you, please. You're on mute. There you go.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Basically, our vision is a world where no one has the right to take the life of another, be protected or insulated from the consequences of doing so by a system of structural racism, obfuscation, and propaganda. And Marion put in the chat, we're working in a system that no amount of training is going to fix. We are in total agreement with that. And that's where we all have to come to agreement that it's ingrained cultural in the system of policing. And we have to really dismantle that sick culture that exists and bring in a whole new, a fair and just system that we all will have the right to real freedom, justice, and equality.
Absolutely. Thank you, Uncle Bobby. Angelo, can you answer that point, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to do radical things, right? Because the way the system exists now, it's by design. And Tupac said, we are not meant to survive because it's a setup. The system is set up in a way to prevent us from having justice, equity, right? So we have to do something radical to spin the system on its head, to reverse it, so that way we begin to get it. And for me, it starts with a mindset shift for us, recognizing that community control is the answer. And when we say community control, what we're saying is we control it. You control it. Each and every one of us decides what happens, but the only way you really get community control is by seizing power. And one of the ways power gets seized is political. Because when we do become the individuals who make the decisions, whether it's the DA, whether it's the city council, whether it's the governor, the attorney general, not only can you make decisions about power, who gets prosecuted, who doesn't, you get to control the resources that we're already putting in the system. And we often say that we don't have money and our organizations don't have money, but the reality is we give so much money to the existing government and they spend it on whatever they want. And right now in Atlanta, they're spending millions of dollars on Cop City that nobody wants, right? So they take the money that we're putting in to the existing system and use it for whatever we want. But when we begin to seize that political power, we decide what happens, political decisions, policy, and we get to control what happens with the money. The money that's our money that's going into the system, right? So we have to really change the way we think. I think move to community control, which means we are in the positions to make decisions, and we have to seize power and seize the resources to transform our community and the organizations on the front line doing the fight.
All right, thank you, Angelo, so much. Nikki?
For me, there really is no justice. I think when we lose our people and when they introduce us to the judicial system, we will never get justice. That's how it is. Accountability for me, accountability would be us figuring out a way to avoid this situation, educating ourselves and educating our people to the point where for me, I feel like things won't change until we're able to use their laws to our advantage. They're not going to, until we can learn how to use the laws work. They work exactly how they're designed to work. They're just not meant to work for us. So once we figure out a way to make them work for us, they'll be willing to change them. They'll change all of them. Because the thing is at that point, we have control of our communities. As Angelo says, we have control. Once we understand the system that we live in and we're able to navigate it where we are taking advantage of it, then they'll be willing, then they're going to try to change it on us. But we just have to I think for me, accountability is education, because we need to educate ourselves. We need to educate our community so that things can change.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jimmy, what is justice and accountability to you? Mr. Jimmy, you with us still?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, right here. I know you said. Yeah, for me, I know everybody should be held accountable, outside the movement or inside the movement. I think nobody should get a pass. I don't care who it is.
That's right.
Nobody. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of times we all fall weak sometimes. And those who are strong got to bear with the permanence of those who are weak. And we need to learn how to lift up each other more. We need to learn how to reach out more, encourage each other more. Because like I said, it's designed to wear and tear on us. So I'm going to leave with this right here. See, freedom is never given. Our freedom always have been won. And we must continue eating through our sufferings, our struggles, our heartaches, our pain, our challenges of life, our struggles. We got to keep moving forward. If we fall down, we get back up. And I asked someone the other day, I said, do you think we're going to win this fight? And she came with all these things. But for me, myself, I don't know how nobody else feels. I know we're going to win this fight.
Damn right. Damn right. Damn right. LaToya, for you, what does it mean for you, justice and accountability? I think, is she there? Okay, I'll come back to her. Deanna, you want to answer for me too? Oh, there you are. There you are. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, y'all. I didn't want to speak about accountability except for in its systemic implications. And I feel like it's really easy to picture what a world with accountability looks like. And it's literally every white affluent suburb in America. Piggybacking off what Angelo said, these communities basically control themselves and they choose to fund money into mental health and community programs, public services designed to deter crime. And they don't deal with over policing and discrimination. Just quickly, in my county alone, we have a $340 million budget and only 6.1 million is going towards mental health. And that includes an extra 5 million that they're putting towards police salaries. We have offices of accountability. We have, the design for badge camps to come in, and we have councils, we have these things, and they don't bring accountability. Accountability, I believe, just piggybacking off of what Angelo said, looks like us controlling ourselves. It's community control, truly. I'm a true abolitionist. I don't believe in police at all. I don't even believe in the prison systems, if I really want to take it there. It's all designed against us. And really quick, while I have the floor, Oscar, you will learn more. And we are here. This is a community that was built off of love and support for everybody that going through this. I didn't want to bypass what you said. I think it's one of the most significant things that you said. You will learn more, and we won't stop fighting for you.
That's
Because
right.
they are trained to kill children. Our children cannot run to them because harming us is fun to them. And so I just wanted to acknowledge you and to tell you that we love you and that you are not alone.
Thank you so much.
That's right. Deanna, you want to answer that first real fast, please?
Yes, I'm gonna do it real fast.
Okay.
Justice would mean that our loved ones would still be here. I would say that accountability is far-reaching unless we topple all systems that don't serve us.
Yeah.
Like the sister said, we have to abolish all these systems because they are not working for us, have not worked for us. And to think that when you get to a trial and whatnot, you think accountability is going to come and you're going to feel something from that. But then you realize that accountability still didn't measure up to anything compared to the ultimate loss and the betrayal that you suffer. So it's a good question. It's something to bond upon, but justice and accountability, the pendulum for justice just keeps moving further and further back for us.
Thank you, Deanna. All right, Mike, you want to go on and end this out?
I want to say I agree with everyone, that said, said that piece. But me personally, I feel like true justice can only be served if our children were still alive. And accountability, me personally, the eye for an eye.
No, that's right, brother. All right, you guys. I just want to thank everybody for this has been great. We went over the time. We got a little bit off topic, but I think the conversation was much needed. Be on the lookout for the next town hall virtual discussion. I think we're gonna talk about voting next because that's another important topic. We already discussed on here about how you get people in power and they don't do shit, right? And even the ones you put in power, they might not still do shit. So it's kind of like, how do we have this conversation about one, voting and then putting people in power? So I want to thank everybody tonight from the bottom of my heart for joining us tonight. I really hope people who tuned in tonight, y'all learned something. Know that you learned something, but please look every one of these families up here, look their names up, share their stories, do the call to actions. We are a community of one. We got to all work together. Roxane, you want to say anything before we close out?
Once again, thanks to all of you for supporting and coming out and talking. And this is a much needed conversation. We're going to have some more of these conversations and we're going to get to the goal line together. as a community.
That's right, you all. Good night, you guys. Thank y'all so very much, y'all. Good night.
Can I do a quick announcement before we go?
Yeah.
So we're talking about organizing. Tomorrow night, we have a Zoom call that is called Building Bridges. And we make announcements about various activities that are taking place around the United States. And those of us that are on that call, that's where we go. And that's how we're starting to build this momentum to support those families that are isolated or thinking they're alone. So anyone that's on this call tonight that is not familiar with the Zoom call that we have tomorrow, I definitely want to invite you to it. And I can share the Zoom link with you, LaToya, and then you can
And I'll share with everybody else. Absolutely. That'd be wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you. And good night.
Absolutely. Y'all got anything else? Any more announcements? Any diversions coming up? Court dates? We good?
I just want to say real quick.
Together. Go ahead, Angelo, right there. Go ahead.
First, I want to say thank you, LaToya and Roxane, for your leadership. This is so important. And to dovetail what Uncle Bobby said, I've been pulled in to do some work, and I mentioned this to LaToya. Last year was the 50th anniversary of the first Black National Political Convention that happened in Gary, Indiana in '72. And Mayor Ras Baraka of Newark, New Jersey, and Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba of Jackson, Mississippi, have come together to try to host that again in October. So I've been working and pulling together folks who are organizing around the country. So I definitely want to make sure all of you folks are involved. And Uncle Bobby, I'm gonna make sure I try to get on that call. That Zoom to kind of loop you in and pull those folks into it, because I think that's kind of what we need. We need spaces where all of us are having a conversation.
All of us.
Yeah,
right.
So,
yeah. Right. So like I tell you all the time, Angela, let's get it done. Let's do it. Let's get it done, you guys. So, and that's all we have for tonight, y'all. Be on the lookout for next week's guests. Oh, I think we have one more person. Who?
Can I make one announcement? If any of you can make it to Maryland, in November, the trial for the officer that murdered my cousin, Michael Owens, his trial starts the end of November, and I'll make sure everyone has the information for that. And if you can make it here, come on for that trial.
Right, we'll share it as well, Nikki. Send me the flyer. We'll share it as well. You guys, we gotta make sure we share information and make sure we're showing up for court. So I'm gonna try this one more time. So
this is the last thing for real. I just want to.
I have one question. Oh, somebody go and say something. Go ahead, Angelo. I have a question after you, Angelo.
This is just the last thing. If anyone or any family ever needs something posted, I try to use Until Freedom's platform to spread awareness about what's happening. So if anyone ever has something that you need posted and that you want to create some visibility for, please reach out to me. We'll use our platform to do that. So the event in November, anything that's happening, just let us know and we'll use our platform to do that.
Awesome. Uncle Bobby, will there be a Families United for Justice?
It is. It's going to be on the West Coast. We're just still waiting on our bids to determine where at in California. But yes, and all the families, I think all of you actually has been to the conference except for Oscar, maybe Jimmy Hill. I'm not sure if I know you or met you, but I'm pretty sure most of you actually been to the conference. But anyhow, yes, I'm sorry, Marion, for going on with it. But we will have one this year. Yes.
Okay. Is there a date set for? Is there a date?
Yeah, the dates are set for September the 29th through October the 2nd.
Okay,
that's Thursday to Sunday. So I might be off one day or two, but it's September the 28th to October the 1st or something like that. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And we'll be sure to you guys. I try my hardest to make sure we're sharing out everything as well on social media too. So be on the lookout for that as well, you all. All right, we're gonna try this one more time, okay? If you got something else, don't even say it. Just text it later on. Look, what you want, Roxane? Like,
oh no, I'm counting you down, sis. I'm helping you count.
Okay, come on.
Going twice, going 3 times.
Angela,
good night,
everybody. Thank you. Great call.
Good night.
Bye.